On a bright spring afternoon in Des Moines, Iowa, an old factory lot transformed into a makeshift stage, buzzed with anticipation, as rows of folding chairs filled with people waving flags and campaign signs awaited President Donald Trump's 2 p.m. speech about small-town America, jobs, and unity. Among the crowd stood 17-year-old Alina Porter, barely visible in the back row, clutching a crumpled note in trembling hands. Her worn sneakers contrasted with the polished shoes and suits. Around her, she hadn't come for selfies or friends, but with a question she wasn't sure she'd get to ask. Having grown up fast after her veteran father, who suffered from PTSD, recently took his own life, Alina had taken on the responsibility of caring for her younger brother while her mother juggled 2 jobs. Alina didn't blindly hate or admire Trump, but that day something inside her urged her to speak up. As the music shifted and applause swelled, her breath quickened and cameras flashed. Trump confidently took the stage, beginning his speech about strengthening rural America, but Alina felt her feet move forward almost on their own. Murmurs rose as she squeezed through the crowd. Some stared, but she didn't stop. Quiet and steady, her voice broke the silence. "Mr. President, what would you say to a daughter whose hero gave everything and came home invisible?" The room fell silent. Even Trump paused. Security moved to intervene, but Trump raised his hand, saying into the mic, "Wait, let her speak." Alina froze, knees shaking, then Trump nodded gently, inviting her up. "Come on, say what's on." "Your mind." She trembled as 2 agents gently guided her onto the stage. Cameras focused on her while thousands in the audience held their breath. Even Trump's usual confidence seemed to waver. Her voice cracked, but she gripped the mic firmly. "My dad was a Marine. He came home, but he didn't come back. No one saw him, no one helped. If we love our troops so much, why do they disappear when they're broken?" The crowd fell silent. Trump didn't respond right away. His expression shifted from defensive to thoughtful. Suddenly, the speech transformed into something deeply personal. Lena's voice faltered, but her determination didn't. She reached into her worn backpack and pulled out a neatly folded Marine Corps uniform shirt. "This was my dad's. He wore it with pride, but when he got back, people crossed the street. To avoid him, he couldn't sleep, he screamed at night, and one day he was just gone." She looked Trump directly in the eyes, her message clear. All her dad ever wanted was to matter. Trump took the uniform gently from her hands, studying the faded name patch, Porter. He nodded slowly and handed it back. "You know," he said into the mic, "I've shaken hands with hundreds of heroes, but I've never had a daughter show me what one left behind." The crowd fell silent, many visibly moved as cameras zoomed in on Alina's tearful face. Trump turned to her and asked, "What's your name?" "Alina." "Well, Alina," he said, "you've asked a question. Every leader should answer, and I don't think I can do that in just a speech." His voice softened. "But I'm listening." For the first time, Alina felt truly heard. Later that evening, news outlets replayed her question on loop, and social media exploded with awe. Trump, usually controlling the narrative, had let a teenager take center stage, and people were listening. Back home, Alina sat in the living room with her little brother Jake, who hugged their dad's old hoodie, watching the coverage together. "That was brave," Jake whispered, and Alina gave a small smile, though her heart felt heavy. "I didn't do it to be brave. I did it because someone had to say it." Their mother, Melissa, stood quietly in the doorway. She hadn't cried when the military folded the flag or during the memorial, but tonight, watching her daughter confront the President of the United States, tears finally fell. On the table near the TV sat an empty chair, her dad's chair, untouched since the day he died, a reminder that grief never fully leaves. But tonight, for the first time, it felt like their pain might have purpose. At 7:03 a.m., Alina's phone rang. The caller ID made her heart skip. White House office. She answered cautiously. "Hello?" A polite female voice greeted her. "Miss Porter, the President would like to speak with you." Before Alina could respond, A familiar voice took over. "Alina, this is Donald Trump. I meant what I said yesterday. I don't want this to be just a moment. I want it to become something real. Would you be willing to meet me in D.C.?" Alina stammered. I guess. He chuckled lightly. "Good. I'm sending a plane. I want to show you something." She hung up, stunned, and her mom looked just as shocked. Within hours, a black SUV pulled up outside their modest home, and a Secret Service agent stepped out. "Miss Porter, we're ready when you are." Alina hugged her brother and mom tightly, unsure what awaited her in Washington, but secretly hoping it meant change. The jet was sleek, silent, and surreal. Alina had never flown before, let alone on Air Force One. Trump greeted her personally on board, not like a president today, but like a man who had heard a truth he couldn't ignore. As the plane cruised above the clouds, he poured 2 cups of tea. "You asked a question no advisor ever has," he said. Alina nodded slowly. "That's because it hurts to ask it." He looked at her thoughtfully. "Do you think your dad would have wanted to be remembered?" Alina didn't hesitate. He just wanted to be seen. Trump leaned back. "Then let's make sure he is." He outlined an idea, not a campaign stunt, but a real initiative focused on PTSD and veteran reintegration. Not flashy, not political, real people, real change. And he wanted Alina to be part of it. Alina's eyes widened in surprise when Trump said she would be the face of the initiative. "Me? I'm 17. "That's why you're perfect," he replied, "because your pain is real and people will listen." The rest of the flight was quiet, but something had started, something bigger than just a moment. At the White House, Trump led her through marble halls steeped in history to a private room, almost empty, except for one striking feature, a massive black digital wall softly glowing with countless names. "This is the Wall of the Forgotten," he explained, "a living memorial to those who came back but vanished into silence." Alina's father's name, Sergeant David Porter, was already etched at the top. She gasped. "How did you—" "We started the moment you left the stage," Trump said. "You reminded us real heroes don't just die in battle. They disappear unseen. We want to change that." As Alina traced the glowing names, she felt their stories, the invisible, suffering. "I want to add letters," she said. "Stories from families, from daughters like me." Trump nodded. In that quiet room, surrounded by digital stone, Alina felt her father's presence not in grief but as a powerful legacy. A week later, at a press conference, Trump stood with Alina by his side. Her hair pinned back, heart racing. She read from her folded speech, voice trembling. "My name is Alina Porter. My dad was a Marine. He gave everything but came home broken. No one saw him until now." Looking into the cameras, she said, "If your family has felt invisible, if your story was ignored, we are building something for you." Pausing with a pounding heart, she added, "This isn't about politics, it's about presence." The new campaign logo appeared behind her, a program focused on therapy, employment, and mentorship, designed not just to honor veterans on holidays, but to support them through their toughest days. The room burst into applause, and for the first time, Alina didn't feel small. She felt truly seen. The next morning, she woke up to thousands of emails and messages from sons, daughters, widows, and veterans themselves. "My dad is still alive but fading. Thank you for saying what I couldn't. You made us visible." She read for hours, tears flowing freely. One letter stood out from a retired Navy SEAL named Mark Holland, typed in shaky font. "I was planning to end things this week. Then I saw your speech. Maybe I'll stay a little longer. Maybe there's more to do." Breathless, Alina realized that words don't always change the world, but sometimes they save a life. And that's enough. A month later, the initiative launched across 15 states. Alina traveled to countless cities and spoke at numerous events, but one stop mattered most: home. When she stepped off the plane in Des Moines, her mother and little brother waited. Trump, had arranged a local event at the same factory lot where it all began. Thousands showed up not just to hear Trump, but to hear Alina. She walked on stage, faced her town, and smiled through her nerves. "I used to think I was just a girl from a forgotten family," she began. "I used to think I was just a girl from a forgotten family, but now I know the forgotten are the ones we need to remember most." The crowd rose in a quiet wave of applause, proud of their hometown hero, and her father would have been proud too. That night, sitting in her room now filled with cards and medals, Alina glanced at a dusty photo of her dad on the dresser. Behind the frame, she found a folded note in his handwriting. "Alina, if I ever seem gone, just know you were my greatest mission. Not the Marine Corps, not the medals. You loved Dad." She clutched the note to her chest and wept quietly, realizing sometimes the words we need most are already with us. We just have to find them. 2 days later, she got a formal call from the Pentagon inviting her to be the keynote speaker at the National Veterans Conference in Washington. At first, she panicked, saying, "I'm not a soldier." But the voice on the line said, "No, but you carry the voice of thousands who served silently." It wasn't just a speech anymore. It was about telling untold stories and giving them a place in history. She said yes, and the countdown began. The massive auditorium was filled with veterans in uniform, families with medals pinned to their lapels, young recruits, old generals, and in the front row, Donald Trump, arms folded, eyes fixed on the stage. Alina's voice trembled at first, but as she scanned the crowd and saw not strangers but stories, she found the strength to tell them about her dad. She spoke about the silence that follows service, about the question that stopped a president mid-speech, and closed with a line that would echo on national news for days. Heroes don't stop being heroes just because the war ends. Some are still fighting right here, right now. The crowd erupted in thunderous applause and a standing ovation. After the event, a Pentagon official called her back on stage for a surprise. Alina was awarded the Civilian Service Award, one of the highest honors a civilian can receive. The citation praised her extraordinary courage, compassion, and contribution to the well-being of U.S. military families. Holding back tears as the medal was pinned to her dress, Alina draped her dad's jacket over one arm, letting the crowd see the name Porter. It was more than an award. It was a moment of healing for her, her family, and thousands watching. Later that night in her hotel bathroom, she stared into the mirror, feeling different, stronger, maybe older. She pulled out her dad's note. Once more, read it aloud. "You were my greatest mission," and gently placed it inside the frame of her own photo on the nightstand, whispering back, "I'm still carrying the mission, Dad." Outside, traffic buzzed and news anchors debated policy. But inside her room, everything was quiet. Not because grief had ended, but because something new had begun. Purpose. 6 months after the speech that changed everything, the first still serving, Veteran Center opened in a small Missouri town where suicide rates had soared. This center wasn't just another building. It felt like home, with therapy dogs greeting visitors and veteran volunteers running peer groups, job training, and healing workshops through art and music. Alina cut the ribbon with steady hands and a gold-handled scissor, telling the crowd, "Today, we plant a flag for the invisible battles." Trump stood quietly nearby, then leaned over after her speech and whispered, "You know this will outlast both of us." Alina smiled. That's the point. The press called her the teen who gave veterans a voice, but she wanted no credit, only for her dad's silence to finally mean something. One rainy afternoon, a quiet man in his mid-40s stood by the wall of letters. Alina approached gently. "First time here?" He nodded. "My name's Mason. I served with Sergeant Porter, your dad." She froze as he pulled out a photo from his pocket. Younger Alina was in her dad's wallet. Mason pulled out a worn photo. "He showed us this every deployment," Mason said. "You were his why, the reason he always came home." Alina's throat tightened. "I thought you should know. He saved my life twice. once overseas and once just by believing in me. Mason started to leave, then paused. He'd be proud, you know. She nodded quietly, clutching the photo like a lifeline. Within a year, still serving centers had opened in 10 states. But then something unexpected happened. Foreign leaders from Germany, Canada, and Australia began calling, each wanting to adopt the program for their veterans. At a press conference, Trump pointed at Alina. This girl didn't just ask a question. She built a movement. Blushing and still unused to the spotlight, Alina took the mic for a moment. This was never about me. It's about those without a voice. If other countries want to listen, let's help them speak too. The next month, the first International Partner Center opened in Sydney, and Alina's father's story had now crossed oceans. On the anniversary of his passing, Alina returned home and sat alone on the porch swing, holding a small, unopened envelope. She'd found among his medals, marked simply, "For later." Her hands trembling, she opened it. The letter read, "If this finds you after I'm gone, don't be sad. I got to be your dad, and that was more than I ever deserved. Keep speaking for those who can't, but don't forget to really live. Dance. Date someone who respects you, eat too much cake. I'll be watching and bragging to the other angels. Love always, Dad." She cried, laughed, and whispered, "I'm trying, Dad." Then she stood, faced the wind, and said, "It's your turn to brag again." Years later, her story was told in books, documentaries, and classrooms. A girl who interrupted a president mid-speech, a daughter who turned grief into grace, a single question that froze the room and thawed a nation. Alina never ran for office or sought fame. She married a kind man, became a mother, and continued leading, still serving with quiet strength. Each year, she returned to that Iowa stage, where it began to remind new voices that even a whisper can be powerful if it speaks the truth. She told her dad's story and ended with the same line every time. "He didn't die in war, he was forgotten in peace. Let's never let that happen again." And every time, the room fell silent. Not from shock, but because everyone was truly listening. Just like that day when a brave girl raised her hand and changed the world.